So basically it will be easier for me to kick off the Science and Religion event. Well, thank you so much for being here, first of all, so hopefully you will enjoy it. The idea of this event is, as the name says, a workshop. So as you can see also from the arrangement of the room, the idea is literally for people to start talking about what they think or their perception of science and faith, if you prefer, rather than religion. So as you can see from the program, there will be two talks, myself and my colleague Ali Mosafari. We are the two physicists here at St. Mary's, but we are both religious, but I'm the Catholic one and Ali is the Muslim one. So it's going to be interesting to see the difference in perceptions from physicists who are religious but from different religions. Then we will have workshops on more the metaphysics side, or the interface between science and religion. Then we will have a workshop on more the bioethics interface, and finally on atheism. So as you can see, there is quite a lot of different workshops going on. So anyway, the idea is that we will have talks of about half an hour, and then this will be followed, each workshop will be followed by a networking period where basically people will be absolutely welcome and encouraged to share ideas, visions, ask questions. Maybe some questions will not have any answer at all, but that's the point of this exercise, literally to throw on the tables ideas and talk about them. So I will therefore kick off with my talk. Okay. Right. So as I think most of you know, I belong to the Applied Physics team. I'm the program director of the Applied Physics degree we have here, and also senior lecturer in physics. So my background is more sort of quantum physics, and that's why my talk is on the relationship between quantum physics and theology, which is something I'm quite passionate about myself, and as I call it, is my hobby. So basically, during this talk, I will bring you through, I think, probably the journey I did myself in order to come to my interest in the interface between science, more specifically physics, and more specifically quantum physics and faith, which in my case is Christian faith. So here I put I always like this this paint, which is not really a painting, it's a frescoes, which is in the Galleria dei Candelabri at the Vatican Museums, and it is Faith and Reason United. So there is a Latin sentence there. It reads, in Latin says, Divinarum veritatum splendor, animo exceptus, ipsam juvat intelligentiam. Now, translated in English means the splendor of the divine truth received into the mind helps the understanding. So this is sort of my starting point. I never seen faith and reason as two separate things, never, since I was a child. For me, faith and reason were going together. So some people see it as two individual entities. I don't. I've never done that, really. In my opinion, they literally work together. So in particular, I've never seen philosophy, science, and theology as three separate fields, but as the same field. The same field in the sense that the goal they try to reach is the same, try to understand the truth. or try to have knowledge of the truth, or try to journey toward the truth, whatever you want to see it. But they do it using different tools, using different approaches. So some people feel more comfortable with a philosophical approach, some others with a scientific approach, some others with a theological approach. But after all, the three of them are trying to achieve the same goal. So for me, as a scientist, as a physicist, as a professional physicist, even though I decided to go the route of science, I always put into my science also philosophy and theology. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be I can't be a physicist without also seeing the theological part of science and also the philosophical part of science. And I will give you some examples. For me, the main example is Aristotle. I mean, he wrote a book called Physica, so physics. He was a physicist in his own time, in the ancient Greece, but he was also, as you know, a great philosopher, and also quite a nice theologian in his own way. So, now, what is faith? Now, you can see it under different aspects or interpretation. I always loved this sort of sketch, modern painting by Rembrandt, Abraham and Isaac, which is literally what faith probably means, at least from a Christian point of view. Now, faith is not something passive. Some people think the faith is passive. I've never seen it as something passive. I see it as something active. You have to do something if you want to be a believer. You can't just, sit there and believe whatever you are told. So usually Christian faith, or this is the way I see it, is something you live in a quite personal way, something you interact with, something you live with every single day of your life. Because basically to be faithful means, in a sort of in religion terms, to me means to be obedient to God, but also to try to understand what God is asking from me as a human being. So faith is not static at all, it's something pretty much alive. It's also an ever-growing knowledge of God, after all. So I think to have faith is a huge push to understand who God is or what God is, whichever way really you want to see it. And I think is a stimulus, literally, in every person's life to try to understand the truth, or to at least journey towards the truth. So personally, probably because of my scientific background, I can't believe in what I do not understand. It's just my nature. But I think it's true for many people who have real faith. I mean, I think it's important to try to understand it is what we are talking about, to make some sense of it, not just believe blindly in whatever you are told. That's why it's an entity which is alive. You try to understand God. It is a continuous self-development. Because at the end of the day, if you try to understand God, so you develop yourself. So in my case, I found help from science to try to understand God, and I found help from theology to try to understand science, and in particular physics. So now, faith is not blind, but it is intelligent. I mean, it's not something blind, as I said, something you believe into completely blind, in total blindness, but you do it in an intelligent way. And according to a theologian, Griffith Thomas, faith commences with a conviction of the mind based on adequate evidence. You must have some evidence after all, and we have evidence every single day of our life. I mean, we wake up every morning, is already evidence that, to me at least, that God exists. We look at, out the window, we see nature blooming now because it's spring. For me, it's part of, after all, God's essence. So I see God in all that, and I try to understand it from the point of view of a scientist. Now, what is reason? talk about the interface between faith and reason. But what is reason all about, after all? Well, according to the Oxford Dictionary, reason is a cause, explanation, or justification for an action or an event. Now, this makes quite sense, after all. I mean, you use your mind, your brain, whatever you want to call it, to make sense of something. So, it's basically, well, at least again, according to classical philosophy, which is something I go back most of the time, even in my own work as a scientist, every type of natural phenomenon is certainly an expression of reason. I mean, I can't really believe, also on the basis of physics law, etc., that chaos is dominating nature. Nature is ordered. There is no chaos in nature. Nature is absolutely what you see it is. It's not as complex as it can seem. It's quite simple, after all, if you basically unravel it. But there is order into it. And for me, the presence of order is again a sign of God. Only what is chaotic, at least according to my perception, is sort of evil, if we want to use this word. Whatever is ordered is certainly an expression of reason, an expression for me, therefore, of God. Now, reason is the capacity, human capacity, to verify evidences. Now, according also to Aristotle, which has always been one of my idols, after all, both from a philosophical point of view, but obviously also from a scientific point of view, human beings are rational animals. So he saw human beings as animals because we have our instincts, our emotions, we can be animals sometimes, unfortunately, but we are rational. So the difference between us and an animal is that we can reason. We have a mind, we have a brain that we can use to basically try to verify evidences. So because of this reason, we are on a sort of hierarchy at a higher level compared to an animal. That's what Aristotle was thinking. And he saw in this reason part the immortality of a human being, of humanity. So the mind is the immortal part of a human being. Then we have Pythagoras. Pythagoras, nobody really knows who he was, to be honest. He's quite a mystical type of person. It appears that he lived God knows how many lives, and he kept, basically popping up every now and again. But anyway, even though nobody really knows who Pythagoras was, and nobody was almost left of what he wrote, to be honest, nothing is left of what he wrote. One thing we know about him is that he saw the cosmos as a reason. So he saw the universe itself as a reason. And he thought that because of this reason, the universe is ordered. So what Pythagoras, the philosophy of Pythagoras, which personally I quite like because it's very much mathematical, he tried to see harmony and to find harmony in the cosmos. And in fact, to him, the sort of saying the musical spheres, it appeared that it was him who said that, where the spheres are, for example, can be the planets if you want, and there is music basically related to their movement, which is harmony. Now, then we go to Descartes, great mathematician, great philosopher, and he obviously said cogito ergo sum, which means I think, hence I am. Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of the thing if I can. No, I don't want to. And basically, Descartes did something quite different from what Aristotle and Pythagoras did. Basically, he said, we know absolutely nothing whatsoever, so I doubt about all knowledge, and only if I can basically make some sense of it, I can try to see some order into it. So he was basically arguing about everything. So these are basically different approaches to science. All of them were scientists, all of them. Pythagoras, mathematician, Aristotle, physicist, and Descartes, he was a great mathematician. But all of them, in their own way, try to see God, or to understand God, or to find God. So we come, therefore, to what is called natural theology. Natural theology is basically the combination between faith and reason. Now, faith and reason, both of them are concerned with truth. So because we want to find truth, we use faith, reason, or the combination of them. So faith plus reason means harmony. And that's what I always found even in my own work. To find harmony, to find order in the universe, and so in science, in physics, so in nature, more specifically, I have to put faith and reason together. If I don't do that, I can't find any harmony into nature. So natural theology is basically one aspect of theology. It's the aspect of theology that uses reason, so rationalism, to basically try to see God, to understand God, to find God, basically, but through reasoning. And this is something quite resonates with me because, again, on my background, on my forma mentis, I need to use my brain in order to basically understand. So this is a sort of side of theology which resonates very much with me. It's also called physical theology, to be honest, which is again the combination of faith and reason. The earliest account we have of natural theology was by Plato in his Timaeus, and it was the first time where basically he put together faith and reason to try to understand God through this dialogue in the Timaeus. The other person after him was St. Thomas Aquinas. In his Summa Theologica, he basically gives 5 ways, the quinque vie. So the 5th way, basically, was a theological argument, obviously, but in this one, St. Thomas basically said that we need to use reason in order to understand God. Basically, what he was saying was that if we look around nature, etc., there are a few things that keep happening, but this, whatever is happening, doesn't have a reason. For example, if we see a stone falling, now the stone doesn't have a brain, but the stone is falling because there is gravity, etc. But because the stone is falling, so Thomas Aquinas was seeing in that the sort of intervent of God, because the stone was falling already. So the stone didn't have any reason, it didn't really know what it was doing, but this fall was probably due to something else having the stone falling. So there was something behind the fall. It was not due to the stone itself. So that's how he saw, in one of the ways, the presence of God. Now, science and faith. Science and faith, as I said, natural theology is this relationship between the two. There is a physicist, Paul Davies, someone I quite like. He's different things. He's a quantum physicist to start with. That's why he's someone I'm quite familiar with through his books. He's also a cosmologist, but is also someone who, even though he's not really religious, in the sense that he's not following any particular religion, but he basically can't see science without faith. He can't see the separation between the two. So, and he says that research in fundamental physics, and quantum physics is one of them, can trespass into religion more often than we can think. So basically, in his book, The Mind of God, which is, we have in the library, by the way, if you want to have a look, that's where I found it, is a beautiful book, by the way, where basically it's the approach to theology from the point of view of a physicist. And he said that more than once, during his own job, his own work as a physicist, as a theoretical physicist, he stepped into religion, because there are in particular, and I will show you some parts of quantum physics that are very mystical. I mean, you can't really understand them without religion. It's impossible. Now, any scientific explanation is obviously an assumption underpinning it. Now, the point is that if we make an assumption, that means that there is something which we believe is fixed. It doesn't change. It can be a law of physics, can be everything. So even though scientists try to tear apart everything to understand how it works, sooner or later there must be something they need to believe, basically. They must be believer of something, otherwise it will be a never-ending story. So this is, for example, is something that some scientists, I'm one of those because of my religious side, that's where I, for example, see God, because there is something we must believe into, we can't really explain it. So scientists can be religious, it's not just a few of us, well, we are quite a lot of us, but some scientists, even though they are religious, they keep the two things separated. Some of us, and I'm one of them, try to put them together. Not many of them do that, but more than you can think, and there are big names who have done that, and one for all was, after all, Einstein, who, even though people think he was an atheist, he wasn't. He basically didn't believe in the religions that were surrounding him. He was Jewish by birth, but basically developed his own religion, which is called cosmic religion. It was his own way to see God in nature, and it's quite a beautiful one. So now, being a scientist, being religious, means to try to harmonize the two sides of what is, in my opinion, truths. Now, to do this journey of combining science and faith means to journey without excess baggage, basically. What does this mean? So as I said, bring science and faith together means to search for harmony, as Pythagoras tried to do. And when I just wrote this, I was preparing this slide, in writing about excess baggage and journey towards the truths without having a burden, made me think of what is written in the Gospel in Matthew. Take no gold, nor silver, nor copper in your belts, no bag for your journey, nor two tunics, nor sandals, nor staff. Basically, to me, means go open-minded, and without any misconception, without any burden coming from our society, from our beliefs sometimes, just be completely open and free and light in this journey, without any burden, without this thing that can drag you down. So being free to think, a free thinker basically, and a free seeker. That's the way I see it. So, and this is also the reason why, as you can see, there is a logo there, the little purple and green thing is a logo that was created here, and it's the logo I created for this event, and we will use it as also part of what myself, Stephen, Georgine are doing, and Judith to come be here, which is our group to give back the Catholic identity to St. Mary's, and this is one of the activities we are doing, and this is the logo that we probably can use if we wish to. And what is written there is understanding science through God and understanding God through science, because that's, I think, the way where the two things can really be combined. Now, there is a book written by, he's not a scientist, he's a priest, who was quite interested in science, quite a sort of strange person, but basically in this book, which is quite interesting, Quantum Theology, it says, journey to understand the nature of light. So now, what is light therefore? Light is the basic of everything. Light is what makes us what we are. Now, from a physics point of view, it's an electromagnetic radiation, which can probably sound a bit dry, but that's what it is. It's part of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is quite large, and light, the visible light, is very, 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 very tiny. So if this is, for example, the electromagnetic spectrum, visible light is probably, half of my nail. That's what we see, not much. The rest is electromagnetic radiation, but we can't see it. We can experience it. So light is beautiful. You can do everything with light. You can't survive without light, basically. So you can experience light every single instant of your life. Even when you drink something, you put, the straw inside, the straw bends. Okay? This is due to light. This is due to a phenomenon called diffraction. Or, for example, you have a prism, and you can see, the rainbow. You have white light coming through a prism, and then you see the 7 colors. That's called diffraction. And this is what happens, for example, when we have a rainbow. When we have a rainbow, that is diffraction. We have little raindrops, and the light is, enters the raindrops, and it is, it undergoes some internal reflection inside, and it is dispersed, so it is diffracted, and that's why we see the 7 colors. Okay, so we really have light anywhere. Another thing, as we know, light is delayed. So when we look at the starry night, basically the stars we see, probably they are not there anymore. Maybe we see stars, they do not exist anymore, because what we see is the light coming from them, but maybe they died a long time ago. Because light doesn't travel, as you know, it travels at a fixed speed, which is the speed of light. Because of that, because of this limitation, when it reaches us, you have a star which is not dying yet, so it's emitting light. The light travels at its own pace, not very fast, to be honest. Now, to reach us, it will take some time. And in the meantime, the star has probably died. But the light from the star will reach us now. So we see the star, even though the star is not there anymore, which can be a bit tricky to understand. There is a delay. There is a delay even from the sun. When we see the light coming from the sun, it comes 8 minutes delay. Okay, so the electromagnetic radiation coming from the sun reaches us 8 minutes later. So if you want to know something about the sun, whatever you observe, you have to understand that one happened 8 minutes earlier, not at that very moment. So there is this delay due to the fact that the light is traveling at a fixed speed. So as Einstein said, reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. And this was how Einstein slowly was basically developing his own way, his own sort of religion after all. Let us talk very briefly about quantum physics. Now, quantum physics deals with the invisible. That's why I personally love it. Deals with something we cannot see at all, something which is at the nanoscale, and that's why I probably shifted to nanotechnology later in my career. If there is something you can't see, that's quantum physics. If something you can't understand, that's quantum physics, basically. So quantum physics is based on the particle-wave duality. I quite like that. I said act like a wave, not a particle when you do that, so it goes stuck in there. What does this mean? Every particle, even light, which is made of photons, they can behave as a wave or as a particle according to how you detect it, how you measure it. And this is something that Einstein hated. And that's when he said God doesn't play dice. He was criticizing quantum physics because quantum physics is purely probabilistic. There is nothing certain. And that's what Einstein couldn't stand at all. So basically, here I put this one. So there is this duality between particle and wave. Now the beauty, or not beauty, for me the beauty of quantum physics is that it tells you that if you observe something, you change completely the nature of the something. If you don't observe something, it will stay the way it is. But if you observe it, you will change it. So that's basically due to the fact that quantum physics say that everything, including ourselves, or what we are made of, is in reality, well, it can be described through what is called the wave function. Now, the wave function contains all the information, okay? It's like our body is like a wave function, or our DNA is like a wave function containing all the information about us. If you do a measurement, then you basically choose only one aspect of that wave function. The rest is gone. So you narrow down the nature of the wave function. That's what in quantum physics we say that the wave function is collapsing, basically. It's dying and only one aspect is left. So quantum physics is based on 4 pillars. There are certain physical properties that under quantum physics, rather than being continuous, become discrete. Continuous, for example, time is continuous, but under quantum physics becomes something discrete, something you can count, basically. Wave particle duality, we have already seen that. Principle of uncertainty, basically you don't know where you are. You can be anywhere, it depends. That's why it's probabilistic. I can be here, I can be there. It just depends on the measurements that people do on me. I could be anywhere, but because you are looking at me, then I'm here. If you were not looking at me, I could have been anywhere else, according to you, basically. That's what quantum physics says. And then the famous quantum entanglement, which basically says that all particles in the universe are linked to each other. If something happens to a particle, something will also happen immediately to another particle, which is probably billions of light years away, but is somehow linked physically to the previous particle. So, for example, you can see it even in human lives. Something is happening to me. This can probably have an effect on someone else, even though there is distance between myself and someone else. This is the quantum entanglement. So there is anything in common between quantum physics and theology? Yeah, there is plenty. One thing for all, both of them are probably, according to some people, weird, or not completely understandable, or probabilistics or whatever. Well, both deal with the invisible, after all. Theology deals with something we can't see. Quantum physics, the same. We have to believe. And in fact, if you become a quantum physicist, you become a believer. When I decided to become a quantum physicist, some of my colleagues or my classmates were criticizing me, saying, well, how can you do, you can study something, you have just to believe. You can't really touch anything. How can you do that? You're not a physicist, therefore. But that was probably the theologian in me who was pushing me towards quantum physics. So quantum mechanics can be ontological, literally in the philosophical terms. And the ontology of quantum mechanics is seen in the Copenhagen interpretation, according to which you can basically know something about a phenomenon or whatever only if you observe it. If you do not observe it, you will never ever come to know anything about it. Now, because quantum mechanics is ontological, not many physicists are comfortable with, because they're more quantum physics. Well, a physicist is more comfortable with epistemology because they can measure something. But not with ontology, because they can't measure anything. They have just to sometimes guess. There is a parable of the twins' journey, which is a sort of little story in quantum physics. Basically says that there are two twins, and they leave schools and they go their own way, and there is a road and there is a bifurcation. One twin encounters the bifurcation, it goes left or right, whatever. The next twin, the other twin, will encounter the same bifurcation, but not at the same time. It will probably go left or right, whatever. but the two twins do not know what the other twin did. Many years later, they came together, they start talking about their own lives, etc. What they discovered is the bifurcation. One went left and one went right. And this even though they are twins, so one supposes that they do the same thing, because they are linked even mentally, they didn't. But despite that, they reached almost the same goal in life, or even though they went different directions. So therefore, this basically tells us that sometimes, even in quantum physics, there is a lot of mysticism, because there are things that are happening without a reason, or at least we can't understand why they're happening in that way. Now, Heisenberg, who is the father of the uncertainty principle on which the quantum physics is based, says what we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning. So it depends how we see things. And this is true for physics, it's true also for theology, it's true for philosophy. It's very much personal, it's a personal journey. Now, I put here this quite nice sort of sentence from the Upanishads, which is the holy book of Hinduists, which I personally quite like. And they basically went quite far, because they said that when there is duality, as it were, there one sees another, there one smells another, there one tastes another, but where everything has become just one's own, just one's own self, then whereby and whom would you see? Then whereby and whom would you smell? Then whereby and whom would you taste? So basically, this is also what science and faith are all about, to become one, to become a unity. And that's what also Plato and Pythagoras were saying. Unity is basically at the center of everything. You can't separate things. It is just oneness. So in Christianity, basically, there are a lot of similarities, and both of them sometimes use the same methodology. For example, in both cases, there are realities that they can't be explained unless you go beyond nature, beyond what is you can touch. Free will, well, again, is the same, sort of the same thing. Both God and whatever is in quantum physics, we can call it God as well, they can act through something which is not determined. And then basically both of them understand that there is something beyond nature. It's not just nature and that's it. There is something beyond it. So the way forward, well, I'm quite fond of John Polkinghorne. First of all, because he was, he is, he's a physicist who at a certain point in his life, when I think he was 50 or whatever, even though he was quite a good physicist and he made a lot of contributions, in particular to particle physics, he decided that it was time for him to do something else. He became, therefore, a priest, an Anglican priest. And now he's working as interface between physics and theology. So he wrote this book, Quantum Physics and Theology, and Unexpected Kinship, which is quite a good one. And basically found 4 main relationships between the two. In physics, for example, we use both experimental data and then we try to make sense of them using theory. Now, in Christian theology, our data are Jesus' life, the life we study in the Gospels, and theology does the job of theory to basically explain the data, which means Jesus' life. So this could be something common. In physics, for example, sometimes you have situations which are not entirely understandable, like how to prove that protons and neutrons are made of quarks. Well, you have to do experiments, you have to try to understand it somehow. in Christian theology we do the same. For example, why did first disciples think that through the risen Christ they had been given a power to transform radically their lives? Why they thought that? So you can start thinking about why not someone else? Why Jesus? Why did he do something different from others? What was there? What was the driving force to answer basically this question? But then, back in 1913, when superconductivity, that is something very common in our lives, was discovered, it was a miracle. Nobody could understand what on earth was going on, and they thought it was literally a miracle. So it was a sort of, it was inexplicable. I mean, only quantum physics, many years after, started explaining it, but before that they couldn't. And then the discovery of quarks changed physics completely. And in theology, the resurrection of Christ changed completely the theology of the Western countries. So there is a foreign marriage between the two. Personally, I can't really see how you can separate theology, which is the study of the source of everything, which is God, and science, which is the study of nature, which is what God has created, and you do that through mathematics, which is a divine language. So there is no way for me to divorce the cause from the effect, basically. I can't see how. This is what I do not understand. So I just leave you with something which again Heisenberg said. Physics research and activity unravel something new. If you are a physicist or a scientist, you try to unravel new things, which is what we have to do. But according to Heisenberg, he wrote that in his autobiography, one is almost scared by the simplicity and harmony of those connections which nature suddenly spells out in front of you and for which you were not really prepared. And then he also says, when one stumbles this very simple great connection which are finally fixed into an axiomatic system, for example a formula, an equation, the whole thing appears in a different light. Then our inner eye is suddenly opened to a connection which has always been there, also without us, and which is quite obviously not created by man. So basically, I strongly believe that if you are really a scientist, a physicist, in my case at least, you cannot but see that there is something behind that. Otherwise, you are losing half, basically, of the explanation. Okay? Well, anyway, thank you so much for bearing with me in my, talking through this thing. So, as I said, we will have then a networking later. So, I leave it to Ali. Ali, are you ready? Well, thank you so much anyway.